Hey everyone, this is Razorfinger, and this is another episode of Small Talk. When it comes to dungeon crawler games, we usually think about either RPGs or Metroidvanias, or Metroidvania RPGs, and also roguelikes. I think a lot of this comes from the progression system, usually tied to these types of games. The further into the dungeon you go, the more levels or power-ups you collect, so the dungeon can get progressively harder as you get progressively stronger. It's a match made in heaven. That's why the game I played for this episode was such a surprise. It's none of the above. It's actually a crazy first-person beat-em-up brawler, and one of the most creative games I've ever played, period. I'm talking about Fight Night by Team Sorcerope with a free demo up on itch.io, link in the description. Usually, before jumping into the game itself, I like to talk a bit about the genre around it and its inspiration, but this game really is one of a kind. The thing it reminds me the most of is Punch-Out! But its setting, presentation, and hell, even gameplay does differ quite a lot from it. So what is Fight Night? As I mentioned before, it's a first-person dungeon crawler with action-packed combat encounters where you got nothing but your fists to rely on. Every single interaction in the game comes from your fists. From killing enemies, to activating buttons, to, well, talking. It's funny, it's creative, and it's actually very much badass. The plot behind it is that you are cursed to never wield a blade ever again. And instead of running home crying and abandoning your adventuring career, you got slow as fuck. The gameplay then consists of a grid-based movement where you, the knight, goes up to enemies and very rapidly punch them. The enemies occasionally flash red and attack you back, and you can either move out of their way or parry their attack. Both open you up for a counterattack, so they each have a time and a place to be used. You can also interrupt enemy attacks by punching them at the right time, which is a bit harder to do but definitely a viable option. There is a pretty big variety of enemies, and an encounter can contain various types of enemy at once, so battles do get very crazy, with multiple enemies going red all at once and all of them having different parry timings, and then occasionally that mummy-mancer fucker comes up and you have to kill him very fast, or else he'll start reviving all of the mummies that took a lot of sweat and blood to kill. It's interesting how, even without an RPG progression system, there's a lot of underlying player evolution going on in the game. Later on, killing skeletons becomes second nature, but killing the mummies not so much. And even later on, when killing mummies becomes second nature, they start throwing a lot of curveballs at you with the land sharks that have very small parry times, or the annoying gunslinger guys that attack from a distance. Aside from basic punching, there are a couple of special attacks called specialties that you can unlock by using monster ingredients you get after battle. These are very powerful attacks that take a bit of your energy and has you perform a minigame to unleash its full power. Minigames and their minigames. Honestly, these are pretty strong. Energy comes back very quickly, and some moves might kill upwards of 3 enemies if used correctly, as well as make you invulnerable for the whole duration of the attack. I personally stuck with using only the JoJo reference attack, as I found it very strong and the minigame was just mashing the spacebar without thinking too much about it. It sure felt like the strongest of the 3 specialties in the demo. So between upwards of 6 different enemies in the screen and you constantly dodging left and right, with your head bobbing like crazy and the camera zooming in and out of your punches, combat really gets very frenetic, sometimes to the point of confusion. In that way, it perfectly captures the feeling of an actual brawl, something uncoordinated and raw like a bar fight. It's really engaging. There are a couple of options to reduce the head bobbing and such, But I'm not a coward. The game has a very distinct art style. Everything, from the characters to the interface, moves and bobs and shakes, and it's generally just really fun to look at. When it comes to the dungeon crawling aspect, the level design is really smart and confusing. You can very easily get lost when not paying attention, but there's always that awesome Dark Soulsy feeling of opening up a pathway that takes you back to the beginning of the level, where you can easily get back to town and restock and save. If I were to point out an issue with the game, it would definitely be this backtracking to town thing. You see, if you die, the game reloads to the last save, which means you should save as often as you can. Thing is, you can only save in town and there's no easy way to go about it. No fast travel, no dungeon escaping item, you gotta walk. As I said, sometimes the game opens up a pathway that serves as a shortcut to the beginning of the level, and that works wonders. On the first floor. The second floor is quite a nightmare. It's good that it's labyrinthian and confusing, it really gets your brain juices going with its layout and the quicksand puzzles, and that's great for the exploration part. But going back through it to restock and then climbing back up again is quite a hassle, and you can't just go through a straight line, you have to dart around the evil statues. It's not an easy dungeon, so you might have to go back to town 2 or 3 times to make it through. I personally got to the boss with almost no health left and he wiped the floor with me, so there was a very good chunk of backtracking to do with very little health to spare. Thankfully I had the item that revived you after one death, but even with full health that boss is quite brutal. While I mentioned that as an issue, that tense moment of barely making it out alive was actually one of the most memorable things to have happened in my playthrough of the demo. The bigger problem was when I wasn't really in so much trouble, but was afraid of losing too much progress and had to go back for safety reasons. Bosses come up with little warning, and sometimes new enemy formations might catch you by surprise. So, with dungeons this long, I personally thought that losing too much progress would be very frustrating. I personally learned my lesson when the Minotaur took me by surprise and wiped the floor with me when I was at low health, making me lose quite a bit of progress. But all in all, that's the game. It's got great visuals, fun writing and characters, solid music, great level design and puzzles, and a generally fun as heck combat system. The full release is not too far out, with their latest Kickstarter page mentioning the possibility of a February 2020 Steam release. You should definitely check it out. But for now, thanks for watching.